Now for the fun part. All that just to get to this. So now we're going to call this orders. Oh, still got my orders. Test mark? Nope. Test match. I keep wanting to say mark because we were talking about that a few minutes ago. Yes, I want you to use on the web. And now here's the tricky part. Ready? Oh, done. Okay. Now the fun part is filling this out. So we know that we are using orders. My default SQL name is DBO. My matching table is going to be our test mark because that's where our data is. Again, I told you I didn't think I needed the orders, but I did it anyway. And it was smart enough to know that's the name. You have to have this job ID column. Remember, I told you that you have to have this job ID. Now, the test name and the job ID, and I already closed it, so that's why I like having SQL open, is not in there. They're null, remember? And remember, I actually put in that blank space. So this one, since it's a string, came back as blank. This one, it should be in a string too, but it came back as null. Maybe a number. I don't remember what this one is, to be honest with you. Probably a number. Oh, actually, it has to be a number because it's an ID. So now the next catch is we're going to go to here, and we have to add our ID here. Now, one thing I noticed is save this, because this next window, when you click on it, when you click on this next window to set your columns, it's hard to get out of it. And you'll see what I mean. So it wants to know what is your ID. Well, that's why we have this ID field. Okay, so we're going to bring it over, and I want to save it. Now this is actually a tags window. This is not really part of data matching, but the problem is now there's no way to go back, at least that I can find. Now it may be under here. Nope, that's my projects. So notice I'm in tags, and if I hit save, which I did, and I think this is close. See, it went away. But the problem is I'm not back at that window that I was at before. So let's refresh this. So if you don't save it and you try to go back, then you lose your data pool and you have to recreate it. So now I think we're good. So I don't have any matches yet, but normally as a habit I clear this when I go. But you've only set the parameters. Okay. There's other parameters you can set, and I'm not going to talk about those yet unless there's just questions. And I apologize about these little pop-ups and windows. I'm not sure how to turn those off. I think it's going to be in my settings on it, but you guys don't care, do you? So as you can see what mail I'm getting. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. Lost my train of thought. So now we need to edit the data. This is the part that gets kind of tricky, okay? Now, when I say edit the data, let's look at that for a second. This is our test mark. It has the data that we put in there from our view from the table, okay? Now, what we need to do is add the data into our test. It could be called a test case, but it's whatever we're testing with. Now, let's give it a name. We're going to call it, we're going to make this smart. What is our products? Did I spell distinct? I always get that word wrong, and I know I shouldn't, but I'm not a very smart guy sometimes. All right, we'll get to that in a second. I think it's ENT, right? Select distinct. I want product name. From orders, okay, and I'm going to cheat. DISTINCT. That's what I put the first time. I didn't show it. Oh, I left out the C. Duh. Okay. So that's what I did the first time. There we go. All right. If you don't believe me, you got the video. You can wind it and look. What is our distinct? Okay, so here's our products we're looking at. So, and I'm not going to do all these. Let me see. We're only going to do a few. I think I want to do like this phone. Now, you don't, I'm a big database guy. I like to verify and query and all that good stuff against the database. But of course, we're not going to talk about this in this video. But of course, you can do whatever you want. So I want to give it a name. So product test. Okay. Well, I don't know if you have any spaces, but I'm not going to have spaces. Okay. And I'm only going to do 3 of these, just because I don't need a whole bunch of them. Okay. I need to make it active. This is either yes or no. Okay. And I'm sure if you go to CA's website, you can find all these, but a lot of these make sense. Do I have what matching rows do I want? Do I want to repeat the test? I kind of just leave everything blank, but what you can't leave blank is the name, active, and your test conditions. Okay. Now I like description. Okay. Now that's fine there. And the reason I left this one, I guess I didn't have to, but to me a name doesn't need spaces, right? Description does. Now my condition, we can go here, and what I'm going to say is product name equals, did equals come up? Single quotes. Okay, and this, I'm going to click this to verify it. Yes. And if you notice the count, okay, so your query is pretty hard-coded, and this is why you, not why, but if you notice you don't have an option to look in a different database, but we copied all this data over to that. Copied all this data over to our data mark, and now that's the data we're going against, okay? So I'm going to save this one because that's the razor foam. And then what I'm going to go down and I'm going to say, I like putting a user, you don't have to, but the more you put in here, the more it shows up in your report. So here I'm going to call this test user 1. Okay. Now to make this simple, we're going to create, or to make it cool, we'll create just 2 more. Is that fair? Not that you can argue with me because you're watching this, but I'm going to copy this row down, or this column down. Actually, I could copy the whole row down. That'll probably be faster. Okay. Like I said, there's other stuff you can put in here. Now, a lot of this information you can't fill out because TDM will do it for you when it does this test. Now here, we want to change our product names. So we'll grab, my son loves this PlayStation. He loves PlayStation 3 now. Don't know how old this data is, but so we'll put PlayStation 3. Well, we have to leave 2 because it won't match. This is a test case for, okay. And that's why I didn't want to do a lot of these because it's kind of repetitive here and you don't really care to see this part. But what I'm doing is just cleaning up the data, right? So, and again, I don't like spaces in my names. Just best practice. Developers a lot of times like to reference off names and things like that. Okay, so we've got our PlayStation. And we need to change this one a little more. Go here. Let's so we use the razor phone. You know what? Let's do Xbox. Why not? We did PlayStation. Let's do Xbox. So we'll open this one. Xbox. Again, no spaces. In all fairness, I don't know if it cares because it is a report. I think I've said that every single time. Yes. And here, whoops. Okay. We have an extra space in there, but we don't really care, do we? Here. Here. Did I change this one? Yeah, I did. Okay. If you haven't noticed by the timestamp, I had to pause the video because I had a phone call for work. Let me see. But I try not to do it too much because I want this to be a continuous thing. I also am not very good-minded, so I will forget where I'm at. So I'm changing my test user to 1, 2, 3, and everything else is just blank. All right, so now we should be good. All right. So now I can look at my data. So I'm looking at razors. I want to know how many cell phones I've sold, how many PlayStation games, and how many Xboxes have sold in my database. We gave names. It is active now. And then my test conditions were products equal this, this, and this. So you kind of get this test condition right because it's kind of the heart of it. You can have many, many more. I think the limit's up to 20. But I could say test condition this and ship date. What ship date? Oh, okay. And ship date is greater than or equal to greater than, then you'd have to do a date thing here, right? And I'm not sure what SQL's date is, but 03/21. And we'll do 73, and that's probably not correct because I'd have to see it. Yeah, so SQL's like, what are you trying to do? But anyway, so you kind of get it. But I could do as many as I want here. And you can also combine those. They don't really tell you that, but I've done it where you can put and. But what you want to do is spread it out because then it makes your report look better. All right, so let's save this. We're going to refresh. Now we're actually going to run the test data. So what we did here, let's go back to our notes. We created the data mark, which is in the database, and then we copied the data over to our data pool, which is here. Oh, I'm sorry, we created the data mark, we got the data into a view, and again, I just used a view that was already there, but it could be a view, it could be a table, it could be generated data. There's no rules on what that data is. You just need the data that you're going to test against. Then you want to put it in a data pool so you can copy it over to your test match, to your top, okay, I'm bouncing, so let me back up. We created a table for our data mark. We then got a view together that we want to test against. Then we created a data pool to copy the data from our view to our data mark. There we go. And then we created our actual test match. Okay, so now we're going to run it. So to test it, we can do test match. And if you remember this match down here, now you can't click match until after you've done the other piece that we did, where you just fill in the data. But let's run it now, and let's hope we don't have any errors. If we do, then we'll just have to work them out. Yeah, of course I want to view the reports. So this tells me, let's make it bigger. It's kind of ugly because our names are too long, but that's fine. So see, as I highlight it, you can see the names. So those are our names. It ran. Repeaters 1. This had 15 and 15 and 1 occurrences. And so this is just an overview, okay? So don't worry about that yet. So what we want to look here as well, we can see our IDs, our job IDs, if we ever have to go look up for like support or tech, any kind of tech issues. Of course, they all have the same job ID because they all run at the same time, but I also have my IDs here. Now, the cool thing is if I go look in the database, and we'll go look at the data in a second, but let's say, is this my attachment? Yeah, this is it. Okay, so if I take this out, oh wait, am I looking in the right table? I'm surprised I have nulls. Hang on. Make sure everything worked out okay. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong table. So if I go here, yeah, so 15 products were found that equaled PlayStation, and 15 equaled the cell phones, and only 1 equaled Xbox. So this tells me in that timestamp, I only sold 1 Xbox, 15 PlayStations, and 15 cell phones for a very high price for a cell phone. And then I can go through here and look at, this is just like admin type stuff, not really admin, just maintenance stuff, like process, I guess you'd call it, process work that it did in the background, right? How did it come through with these results? And it's complete, no errors. Again, I'm really surprised. If I go, am I looking at the wrong table? Nope. Bam. But I'm really surprised because you should have data here. Now, if I go look here, though, close, refresh, or maybe I'm thinking different because I'm just trying to get through this. And if I go look at the data itself, now what you'll see, though, is, remember I said some of this will be filled out by TDM? Notice here's my results. 15 occur, 15 and 1. Total match rows, repeaters 1, total unrepeated 1, which is fine. That's what I want it to do. test priority, test users. Here's some, test locking, matching key ID. So it actually, if I go down here, I can actually see the where clause, where ID equals this, and ship date equals that, and product name equals that, and total order equals that, right? So you can actually see the data there. And then this should be top one from, this is actually the query. So if I take this and copy it over, just open up a new query because I'm not sure what's going on there. And I should be able to run this. Yep, see there's my data. But the point is now TDM has done its job, has tested the data, it's worked out the information that it needs, and as you see, it actually works. So that is how you create a test match. The main thing about the test match that you'd get out of that is the report. And again, it's just a where clause in my opinion, but it's a massive where clause. Don't get me wrong. It's not like you can just pull up TDM or SQL and write a where clause, but you can't. I mean, I'm phrase that you definitely can. That's its job. But a QA person or somebody just running a test, because see, I can go run this again, right? A month from now, I can run it again. So I can run it at Christmas time. If you really made this more realistic, you'd probably want to do, if I do clear matches, it's going to clear what was previously there. But I'd probably want to put a date in there, so I'd say how many products sold within this time frame, right? That type of stuff. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully I didn't bounce around too much. I didn't start with a plan with this one. I've kind of played with this a lot. Well, I wouldn't say a lot, maybe twice a while, just recently. But the idea was I wanted you all to see if you started from scratch, how would you get to a test match? Now the next part that I'll probably do tomorrow is add it to ARD, because we got to do an install here in a few minutes. But I'll add it to ARD so you guys can see how that works together. And then what we'll do is we do data generation. So if you go back to our options, right, in ARD, give it a second to open up. But remember I told you there's the find, and then there's the find match and all that good stuff. We'll just go back to our credit card example because I don't have a because, just because I want to. If you go look at your options, and these options are always the same, right? So remember, test data is along the lines of data coming in and out of that process, right? So it's called a symbol, but I hate to use the word process because that's a block, because it could be a true, I get block, okay? So it's the variables coming in and out of that block, okay? But then again, you got the make data. So, and then you got the find data. And the find data wants a test match. You know what? Just kicks and giggles. Why not? I should be able to see mine. Go in, and bam. See? And it recognizes the data. I'm not sure why that one's blank. Maybe that's supposed to be a select all, but I'm not going to select it. Okay, see, here's my values. And that's it. Right, so, and now this will execute, where's my save? Here we go. So now if I run that, it will execute my my test. And then what you could actually do is have results come out of it. So maybe true or false, right? So maybe not here, but maybe here what I can say is if the values are, I don't know if it probably might yell at me if I do this. And I'm jumping ahead, so I apologize about that. Let's do orders. Just finish, I'll do the rest over here. So edit, and we're going to make find data, and we'll go ahead and set the match back to here, and I'll select these. Now this gives me a three-way, not a two-way, because before it was yes and no, right? So if true, that, so set match, no, cancel, I'm sorry, just save. So if true, it should set the match. Okay, that's false, true. Bam. Okay, but I'm kind of just bouncing here. I'm going to try to set up one more realistic later. That's why I'll do it. I'll do a complete video on it. But what I can say is find the data, look for the data, see if it exists. If it does exist, bring it back. If it doesn't exist, that would be a no. Then create it. That would execute your data generation. And if you remember, we had that one. That would be my make data. Set publishing. I don't remember what we did for that one. Maybe this one. No. I think this. Anyway, we'll use that one as an example anyway. Then it has to have a default publish, which it won't because, oh, it does. How cool. Bam. All right, so there we go. So that would run my data generation. Notice I didn't set up any of the variables. One of the questions is, can I copy the variables from one to another? The thing about that, we'll talk about that for 2 seconds, and then I'll put it back into the video. You got to remember, the variables for data generation is actually selecting to create data. The variables over here are really, like in this case, it's more about finding the data. So if the data exists, yes, this, if no, that. And your test match is basically just that. It's a test match, which is this one. I'm sorry. Test match and data generation and just passing in values. Anyway, so I hope this helped. Again, my goal here is to show you Agile Designer. But again, in order to do Agile Designer, we have to do the back work, which is good too. So, so in doing that one, I showed you how to do a test match. And then from the test match, we'll do the data generation. And then that will give us our 2 options for one of our flows. Okay. Anyway, so I hope this helped, and we'll do another one soon.